You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Welcome, everybody. We just lost Nick. Classic old school Leafs Morning Take. Welcome to the show. I'm sure he'll be popping in momentarily, but as you all know, tonight is one of the biggest nights in the possibility of the NHL. It's Game 7, Stanley Cup Finals, and I don't know what it is. It seems like there is an air of, we were just talking about before we came online, but it's like the biggest game in how long? Like, name a bigger game. Everyone's invested in, obviously up in Canada, obviously in Alberta. Everyone's here. You hear, Nick, we're talking about Game 7 tonight. Does it seem like a bigger deal than any other game you can really point to? I know you've had Olympics games and some gold medal stuff in the last decade to 15 years. Cool. But like the story, the Panthers and who they were, what happened last year, what's happening this year, being up 3-0, everyone thought it was done. Connor McDavid, Edmonton, Canada. Holy smokes. It's a big storyline.
Dude, I'm fired up. Great on you to start the show. Technology has never been our friend here on this podcast. John Gallagher writes in, fire Nick, replace him with Edmonton Boob Lady. I second that. Tristan writes in, Nick using Rosie's old computer. So the chat is fired up for Game 7. Yeah, it's got that feel, man. As you know, I was at Game 6 in Edmonton. I was telling you guys off air, bring the conversation on air. Just the electricity, the atmosphere, the feel, the buy-in, the belief. I mean, this team was down 3-0. They've come back from the dead. And I ask you as the former player, what do you think's going on in that Panthers locker room as you get set for a Game 7, knowing like history's on the line? And the worst thing about this, dude, Connor McDavid was held in check in Game 6. You think he's doing that again tonight? Probably not.
I know I did tweet some about that. I'm like, and the worst thing is this Connor didn't do anything and you smoked him 5-1. There's 2 empty netters, but there's a lot of things that point towards Edmonton. But if you look at the Panthers right now, they're reeling, obviously. And I think they've been settled down now that they get away and they get home and they have time to prepare. But at the time they were just like playing it down and acting like everything's cool and trying not to show any bit of panic, which would absolutely be there. They're in freaking shock that they're tied up 3-0. Everybody, and I know that they weren't thinking that, but subconsciously, human nature, you're thinking, we've got them. Like, they're down 3-0. No one comes back from 3-0 in the finals. We've been dominating them. They don't have a prayer. They ran out of gas. Like, it's our team, destiny. We're getting the job done. Hell, I don't know if we want to win it up there and sweep, but maybe we should wait and win it in Game 5 down in Florida. And now it's just like, what the hell just happened? So I kind of chuckle when I see Maurice's interviews and Chuck's interviews because I'm like, what do you say? They're absolutely reeling. But imagine right now it is win a hockey game. Just win a hockey game. Like, literally nothing matters. The past doesn't even exist. There's nothing but right now. So win one hockey game. That's what they're thinking. I'm sure that's their message right now.
I still can't believe we're here. Considering what we saw the first 3 games of this series to where we're at now, I don't know how you see it. I've been consistent with saying Florida's going to win. I just don't know how Florida wins now. I think Edmonton's got all the momentum. Again, as mentioned, McDavid was quiet in Game 6. Skinner's been by far the better of the 2 netminders. The only pathway I see is Connor McDavid hoisting Lord Stanley tonight. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, I said before Game 6, I said, you know what, Edmonton could win this one and tie it up, and it would be a big old story and be very exciting. And Game 7 would be fantastic, but I just don't think you beat the Panthers at home in 7. I think the cream will rise to the top, being that they are the best team in hockey. They have been. We've been saying that. But after that Game 6, man, I'm looking around going, the Panthers have just lost it. Like, they have lost. The wheels have fallen off, man. Defensively, structurally, offense, like, where are their guys? Like, every time it looks kind of like the Leafs sometimes when you're frustrated watching them because it's just one guy like enters the zone. It's like there's 3 guys surround him and he cuts up and then makes a little Hail Mary across the thing. And it scrambles into the corner and then the guy changes and it's like no one's doing anything together. They don't have no seam system that's working that they can get on that builds them some momentum. I'm just like, they have fucking lost it. And you see Paul Maurice back there. I have nothing but respect for him. He's usually Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected, although he gets animated and gets passionate, but he's usually in total control. And it seems like he's showing a little bit of freaking out. And when you got a guy like that, that's kind of your anchor behind the bench, and you can tell he's snapping. I just think they're in a bad place right now. I think that if they lose tonight, they will have to do some serious reflecting on what the hell happened. But it'll be historic no matter what. And yeah, I didn't think I would say this, but I am saying I think Edmonton is the front runner. I think it'll be. I just think they've got all the wheels in motion right now. They are buzzing, man.
Tell you something, we thought we had demons here in Toronto. If the Panthers lose this series, man, those demons are going to be there for a long, long time. Imagine being Paul Maurice or Matthew Tkachuk or Sam Bennett or Aaron Ekblad or Sergei Bobrovsky. That's just, I don't know how you wake up the next day. I don't know how you wake up in 5 years from now and be like, my goodness, we were that close to winning a Stanley Cup. We had 4 chances. We couldn't put away that team. And again, I look for legacy moments. I think this could be it for Connor McDavid, where you talked about the cream rising to the top. I could easily see a scenario where Connor McDavid just goes off and wills his team to victory. Like, he's been the big story for me in general for this cup run, which you probably suspected from the Edmonton perspective. But you're so right. Like, my lasting memory, when did Edmonton become some defensive juggernaut where the Panthers had like 6-7 shots on goal midway through the game? I couldn't believe my eyes looking at the scoreboard in game 6 at the arena there. And I'm like, where's the offense? I thought there was like a 4 or 5 minute pocket early in the third period where the Panthers look like the team I've seen the last couple of years. But other than that, it's been all Edmonton, and this team forgot how to play defense, the Panthers, man. They can't make a save, and they have no answer for the rush when it comes to Edmonton, and obviously in the ozone too. Like, the Oilers are just doing whatever they want. And you put those two things together, it's going to be a tough night at the office. And on top of that, the depth players have been tremendous for the Oilers. It really feels like a team coming together at the perfect time.
It seriously does. You talk about that rush, like, yeah, you got Connor and Draisaitl, but they can spread it out and hit the late guy coming back.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, it can be Nurse, or it can be Ekholm,
Bouchard.
or it can be Bouchard,
Yeah.
or you could hit the third guy high and it's like a Hyman, or and then all their depth guys are, you're like, who was that? And you're like, oh my god, like Janmark and all these guys are, and they're just an absolute powerhouse. And then on what's always been their heel, like, just defensive breakdowns, bad goaltending, a soft one here, let in the first shot of the game and just set the tone with a negative vibe. And Skinner's been, a monster, and Bobber has gone away, and their defense is short up, and it's just wild, man, that they've done what they've done. Usually what makes it extra special is usually at that level, at this time of year, you got two teams that just do not screw around. They don't have weaknesses. There's too much on the line. There's too much discipline. They're too well coached. They have too much leadership. You don't get these flip-flops, man. But to be down 3 Cobb to the Panthers, which everyone's been touting them as the best team in the world the last couple of years, and they completely flipped the script, man. It's just wild. It's just wild. I think we'll look back on this series no matter what happens and just think, what the hell was that? Like, that was wild and crazy, and it's great for the game, great for the sport, great for everybody. It's I can't bloody well wait for tonight, and I don't really get like that for watching hockey games, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it really felt like Christmas morning, even though we have no skin in the fight. We don't really care who wins in the grand scheme of things. I just want to see a great game, and I would love to see Connor McDavid win a Stanley Cup. I think it'd be really, really cool. It truly would, but I think it's going to be interesting. I told you about my guy, Adam Henrique, man. The guy is so clutch dating back to his OHL days. Kind of cool seeing him score again. Both goals he scored in this series I've been in the building for, and the guy just has a knack for the dramatics. I know they've been calling back to 2012, scored the winner, I think, in Game 7 against the Florida Panthers in double OT, scored the winner to send the New Jersey Devils to the Cup Final against the Rangers. The guy just has a knack for the dramatics. I put out a piece today on the LeafsNation.com how I think the Leafs should at least have a call, have a talk, have a conversation with the Henrique camp. Again, his father-in-law is Steve Stumpy Thomas. So looking forward to Game 7 tonight. Lots of news and notes from the Maple Leafs camp early today as well. Producer Vic just telling us, seeing now on Twitter, the preseason schedule is out. 6 games for the Leafs, 2 against the Sens, 2 against Montreal, and the customary 2 against Detroit to wrap up the preseason slate. But let's get to the big topic, a conversation in Leafs Nation. We'll get to the Marc Savard convo. But according to Kevin Weeks of ESPN, it sounds like the Leafs and Joseph Woll closing in on a 3-year contract extension worth around 3.5 to 4 million sheets per season, Rosie.
Yeah, makes sense. I got to be honest. I didn't really see this on the radar. I kind of just knew he was there and just didn't qualify, and it's kind of easy, and he wasn't going anywhere. It didn't really think about it too much. Then it comes up. It's like, oh yeah, 3.5, 4 mil, like 4 mil. It's probably just what he's worth. He doesn't have a lot of experience. Like, how many games has he played in the NHL?
39.
39 games in the NHL. So not a big basket of experience for $4 million. But it's just what the market's at. I think it's where it's at. He is a good goalie. He's done everything that's been asked. He's bailed the Leafs out certain times. He's had a lot put on his shoulders and stood up and stood tall. Obviously, you'll touch on injuries have been somewhat of an issue so far. Doesn't mean that that's going to continue, but it's something that has happened. So you definitely want to be aware of it. But there's not a lot you can do about it. You're not unloading the guy because he got a high ankle sprain last year. You're just going to hope that's all you can do, that he doesn't become injured in the future. You're going to stay on top of it. You're going to do all of your prevention type of methods and get all the right people on this guy's body to make sure that he's in the best, position he can physically, which those guys do in that league these days anyways. And I think it's solid. It's good. I'm excited for him to maybe take a step and be like, I'm like the number one guy, and I don't know if they're going to go get a big boy or not, but I want him to take a step and say, I am the future of the Leafs, and no matter what's going on around me, I'm looking for big things out of him.
So naturally, there's a lot of ifs when it comes to Joseph Woll, but nobody's ever questioned if this guy's a good goalie. It's more, can he stay healthy? And I think when you look at this contract, it's paying him to be a guy who's going to be healthy, because let's not forget, he's still got 1 year left at 766. Before he was to become an RFA, and then he gets 3 years tacked on there. Not official just yet as we have this conversation, but obviously headed in that direction. I think ultimately it could end up being a steal. And the big if he can stay healthy. But I think he has proven, I know the sample size is relatively small and short, 39 games. He has proven that when he's on top of his game, he is a really, really sound, good goalie who has the potential to be a star goalie in this league. So I think that's the expectation from the contract, is like, maybe you strike gold, and if you kick this can down the road and wait a year, maybe he's a guy who plays like a $5 million, $6 million guy. So it's like a bit of an investment, a bit of a projection type deal, but I actually don't mind it. And the other thing I should keep in mind too, if we've learned anything from the last couple of weeks, Rosie, there's not much out there when it comes to bona fide studs. Like, I don't know if you saw over the weekend, the narrative's already changing where they're going to identify Laurent Brossoit or Anthony Stolarz, who's the backup to the Panthers right now, to be a guy they play in a tandem with Joseph Woll. You almost have to build homegrown talent. And I think for the first time in a while, the Leafs have a guy they've drafted. Now it's time to believe in the guy. So I don't have as much of an issue as some people, but I understand there's an element of risk because he can't stay healthy.
I guess, but I mean, who gave out a contract with the assumption that the guy's going to be injured? There's no reason to think that. I think that to talk about a steal at $4 million potentially, yeah. I mean, if he stands up and blows the doors off, but say he's at 4, and like, what's like Markstrom and Ullmark and these guys that they're like 5'6", so it's not
6, yeah.
It's not like you're stealing him. He's got to be a big time goalie for you at $4 million. But I've always thought goaltenders are fairly cheap considering how valuable they are and how much of a difference they make, whether they're very good or very bad. It's season changing stuff with that position. But I agree, he has shown, like, when he's in the net, he is poised, he is very calm, he is very square. He's not scared of the big moment. He doesn't seem to get worked up. He doesn't seem to get rattled. He seems like he's one of those guys that just has a very simplistic look at everything, with just calm and poise, and doesn't really overthink things, doesn't get, real anxiety going everywhere. You can just kind of feel that in the way he conducts himself, his body language, his facial expression, his interviews, how he talks, how he speaks, talking to people that know him intimately. And everyone just sings praises for this guy. And when you look at him play when he's healthy, he just seems very calm, very poised, very strong in net. And it's like, man, this guy could really do some damage if he can just, develop and become that guy and get, a full season or two under his belt.
Get ready for the Daily Faceoff Live Free Agency Special coming to you on July 1st, live from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Join Tyler Remchuk, NHL insider Frank Saravalli, as well as former NHLers Carter Hutton and Colby Cohen, and friends from all over the league for 3 hours of nonstop action as a dive deep into the madness of free agency. They'll be breaking down every trade, discussing the impact on teams, predicting the future of the free agents, and giving you the inside scoop on all the wheeling and dealing happening around the league. Catch all the action live on July 1st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time for the Daily Faceoff Live free agency special. You won't want to miss. Should mention as well, headed off to Vegas tomorrow. So we'll do the show from Stadium Swim coming up. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to today's guest as well. Bryan Hayes of TSN is going to drop by in about 5 from now. And obviously, we got the Woll conversation. We got the Marc Savard conversation. The coaching staff filled out. Things are taking shape in Toronto, Rosie.
Yeah, this time of year, man, it's a little bit of a lull, and then all of a sudden things are coming at you hot with announcements, draft, free agency, all kinds of stuff going on, people getting signed. So exciting time of the year to a point, but get ready for another lull here in the middle of the summer. But at least we got this. I don't think we'll lull because of what the Leafs Nation market is, but I think there's going to be some not surprises, but some excitement coming off of whether it's the draft or free agency or what. I think there's going to be some excitement this year, and people are going to have all kinds of takes on it, and we're going to analyze whether this is going to work and who's this guy going to be with and what's he here for and did they overpay and oh God, and it's going to be wild, and I'm excited for it. So starts off with you getting on a jet and getting to that draft, and we'll see if they make any noise in that thing.
Everything's condensed, man. I can't believe it. Free agency starts a week from now. The draft's coming up on Friday. There's going to be some trade speculation. There's already conversation about Linus Ullmark, who we had on the show last week. Like, I think it's going to be pandemonium and chaos. And teams have tried their best to stay out of the fray, stay out of the action. The NHL hates that when stuff goes down during the Stanley Cup Final. But you can't help it when this thing's like 3.5 weeks long. Like, I was at Media Day for the Cup Final. It feels like it was 3 months ago. So we're going to finish this thing off tonight. We're going to see Lord Stanley hoisted, and then right away coming up tomorrow, we're teeing up the off season. We're teeing up the draft. The draft week specials are coming. Macklin Celebrini is going to go first overall to San Jose. So looking forward to that. At the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube. As we started the show, folks, we were 10 subscribers away from 12,000. So you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Certainly hit that like button. At least when you take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. The opening segment is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. For a good time, find Greta, 590 King Street West. I had a chance to be at the Edmonton Greta over the weekend. That place was bumping. Weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Let the games begin. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. Rosie, so Marc Savard hired, the worst-kept secret in Toronto. The coaching staff is now complete, my friend.
That's what they say. I guess so, man. I mean, the thing is, he's worked with Chief, right? He's had success with them. He knows them, and he wanted them, and there was inklings about this happening. Now he's got them. You know, you crunch to say he is the power play guy, which is on everyone's mind after, you know, what happens in the playoffs and how dry their power play was. So you bring in this guy. His numbers aren't really great or stand out. He was only in Calgary for a year, and they kind of seem to be all right to get him out of there. I don't know, but obviously Craig Berube knows more about this guy than I do, so he seems to want this guy on the roster. So I'm not going to throw my arms up and say anything negative about it. The guy wanted him because he's worked with him and knows what he's all about. So now he's here. We'll see what he can do, man. But I'm just glad there's a change, because something had to change. I don't know what the hell was going on with that stagnant power play, but they need a fresh look. All right.
They certainly do, and I think you crunch the numbers when you look at Marc Savard. It didn't go according to plan last year, as we know, when it comes to the Calgary Flames. I guess post-March 1, it did 27.1%, but I think in the history of his coaching career, he has had success, and he knows Chief, right? So I think you look at Berube's staff, Lane Lambert, Mike Van Ryn, who's coming back from last year, Marc Savard, Curtis Sanford retains the title as goalie coach, and then video coaches Jordan Bean and Sam Kinn. So everything is set here for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get set for draft week. And we also welcome in TSN's Bryan Hayes. What's going on, Hazy?
Hey, boys. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Lots to sift through on this Monday morning. It's draft week, but also Game 7. Just firstly, your thoughts on Game 7 tonight, bud?
I think, you know, it's got the chance, obviously, to be historic if Edmonton closes here. I think there's a real, you know, discrepancy between, you know, the two victories here tonight. If Florida wins, it's obviously incredibly relieving for them. But I think we'll probably forget about the journey that the Oilers were on, right? History would suggest you get 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We don't remember what McDavid did. We probably won't remember that, you know, Woodcroft got fired and Knobloch came on and they went on this historic run. Because if you don't win, you usually don't remember who finished second. So I think it's important in terms of the historical value tonight, in terms of what this could represent, like for league history and NHL history and sporting history, that Edmonton's got to close. Because if they do, it's the most memorable Cup final, I think, in history, certainly in modern history. It's McDavid, the face of the league, best player, triumphant. I mean, the whole story is just incredible. I can't say enough about the Oilers, the resilience, the fact that they're still in this. But it's a coin flip. It's not going to be easy tonight. It'll be an electric vibe. I can't wait to see what happens.
I know. What do you, when you look at the Panthers, they just seem to be unstoppable for, the past couple of years. I was singing their praises, just the way they play, style of playoff hockey, that they've had success in the playoffs. And then this insane turnaround that no one saw coming. Where do you think it went wrong for them so far, albeit it's not done?
I think it starts in net, right? Like Bob was
Yeah.
such a machine throughout the playoffs and such a machine the first few games of this series, and especially in game one. And he's been leaking oil ever since. And you look at that run they went on last year, as you guys recall, they're down 3-1 at Boston and Bob gets thrown in there. And he went on a historical run in terms of his save percentage, in terms of the opportunities that were high end that he was just pushing aside like it was child's play. And they ran out of gas in the Cup final. They all got hurt, and Vegas just steamrolled them. It feels like Bob just ran out of steam, like after 3 games. And Florida has also been a front runner all year. Like, they're a bully, right? And I appreciate that. I love the way they play. I love the way they're built. But you look at the first round, they just kind of steamrolled over Tampa. Then they steamrolled over Boston, and then they smacked New York around. And they were smacking Edmonton around, but Edmonton got up off the mat. And it was almost as if they didn't know how to react, right? Like Edmonton won game 4, they crush them, and then game 5, I thought Edmonton was just simply the better team. And from that standpoint on, like from the first period of game 5, that told me Edmonton's not dying. Like Edmonton, you're gonna have to kill them, right? They're not just going to give it to you. And I don't think Florida's been comfortable with that, because Tampa kind of gave it to them. Boston kind of gave it to them. New York kind of gave it to them. Edmonton didn't accept that. So you compound the fact that Edmonton's resilience is obviously great, and Bob's been leaking oil, and all of a sudden we're in game 7 tonight.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. You talk about demons in Toronto. Imagine the demons in that Panthers room if they blow this. I mean, it hasn't been done in a long, long time. But Hazy, let's transition the conversation to the Maple Leafs. You talk about the crease. The news coming out today that there's a reported extension here with Joseph Woll. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a sign of change with the Maple Leafs and the way that they operate. I think the number, I'm sure you guys have been talking about it, I think the number pops out, right? Like, I think a lot of Leaf fans are going to look at this and say, wait a minute, how is it 3.5 a year, $4 million a year for a guy that's played 39 games and is hurt all the time, like injured all the time? And I would agree with that first assessment. I had the same reaction. Like, I wasn't expecting today a Joseph Woll, contract extension. I don't think anyone was bracing for that. But I remember interviewing Dubas, and I asked him this multiple times when he took over the job. And I asked him, what did you learn from Lou Lamoriello that you're going to apply to this job? And he said, patience. And he said, if you have time, use it. And there's no doubt that he would have applied that practice, and it probably worked, countless times in the past where they were going to sign a guy and then he had a blow up year and they decided, okay, forget it. We took our time. We realized he's not worthy of that price. So we're going to make a trade, but we decided to sit on it for a bit. Thankfully, we didn't make that trade because either we don't want to get rid of the guy now or we don't want to bring in the guy we're going to bring in. So I'm sure there's examples we don't know of where that philosophy actually worked. But there's also countless examples where the philosophy didn't work in the cap era. They didn't sign Marner ahead of time. They didn't sign Willie ahead of time. They didn't sign Hyman a year out. They didn't sign Austin a year out. There's countless examples of that. And the truth is, when it comes to the salary cap, it's a math equation, and you got to take gambles. And I think that's what the Leafs are doing here. They're taking a gamble that Joseph Woll is going to stay healthy, that they can find a way to keep him healthy, and they believe in his game. That's what they're telling us here. They believe in his game, and they believe they're going to get a discount here. And I think that will happen if he stays healthy, because I like him. I like him as a goalie. I mean, his stats would indicate that. He's not a young guy, but he seems to have his head on his shoulders. He's got a year left before this deal will kick in. But if he gives them 40 or 45 starts, and I think that's also what we're dealing with here, I think you got to be realistic. I don't think this guy's the next Hellebuck or, Vasilevsky or anything like that. But if he can be a tandem goalie, a guy that averages 40 starts a year, a 9-10 save percentage, if you're paying him 3.5, that's a discount. And if he exceeds that and turns into a true number one, it gives you 50, 55 starts and a 920 save percentage. It's a huge discount. So I think Tree Living is doing something different than maybe Dubas would have done here, which I think is a good thing. I think it's long overdue they get out in front of this. I think the number's bold. Obviously, it doesn't look great right now, but they're gambling that after this upcoming season, if he has a really good year, a platform year, that they would have had to pay him 5.5, 6, and they're going to get a discount on this. So I think you got to wait for the dust to settle. If he has a good season this year, people are going to be praising this deal. If he's injured all the time and he blows up, the Leafs are going to have to chew on it and they're going to have to explain it.
Yeah, do you think, you talk about patience and some of these things with the draft coming up, you think they could make a splash there in some way, shape, or form? Do you see it being an eventful time for the Maple Leafs, or do you think that's more throughout the summer and in free agency?
I think they got to make up their mind this week, don't you? I mean, that they got to figure out what they're doing in terms of, like, the Marner situation's hanging over everything, as we all know. You guys talk about it daily. We talk about it daily. They got to make a decision on that. I would guess they have. In fact, they of course they have. They've made up their mind on what they want to do. It's just a matter of whether or not they can execute it. They don't have to reveal that publicly, nor are they going to reveal it publicly. But actions will speak louder than words. And this is the week. Like, you got a week today is July 1. Over the next 10 days that's the most important 10 days of any management 10-day span over the whole season. This is it. Like, you got to get your work done because the other teams are getting their work done. You got to figure out the team you want to build, not only for this year, but 3, 5, 10 years down the road. That includes the draft and how you're going to operate. So, yeah, I think they're going to be active. I think this Woll signing speaks to what they'll probably do with goaltending, right? We're probably talking tandem. I don't know if that's Brossoit, if that's Stollarts, whoever. I don't think Allmark's coming up here, but you can make that money work. He's only making 5 this year. Woll's still only making like 800 grand. So it's not as if a stud goalie is completely out of the picture here, but I think they got to figure out what they're going to do in net with Joseph Woll. Obviously, he's a part of their future. And then the Marner thing hangs over everything. And if he ends up getting dealt, then I think you're looking at a very different team. There's always going to be turnover in the back end to begin with. A lot of guys are coming and going. They're going to bring in at least a couple of pieces, in my opinion. I think they got to think up the middle of the ice in the future. Like, Tavares has 1 year left. Who knows what he's going to be at the end of the season? Can you find a way to get his replacement in a year before he expires? I think that's going to be tough, but I'm sure they'll look at it. So, yeah, I'm bracing for change here. I mean, Matthews will be back. Nylander will be back. I think Riley will be back. Then some of the kids, of course, and Woll. But beyond that, I think almost everything's on the table, and I think it probably should be, considering their history and what they want to do in the future.
So I've been at the majority of the games for the Cup Final and polling a lot of people in Edmonton and Florida. A lot of people think that the Marner trade is going to go down, but after July 1 because of the signing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
What's your gut tell you on that front? Because I think it's important to stress, Hazy, like the terminology has been a lot different from the Maple Leafs camp than it was like a year ago when it came to Willie Nylander, right?
Yeah, with Willie, they were blunt. Like, Tree Living showed up and said, we're signing Austin, we're signing Willie. Now, I think a lot of that would have been Shanahan, right? Like, during the interviewing process, it's like, this is what we're doing. So if you want the job, you can be the GM, but we're signing these two guys. And not to suggest Tree Living didn't agree with that, but I think that was probably written in stone before he took the job. Yeah, I think there's a chance that the Leafs are willing to pay the signing bonus. They don't care. But the deal would be done before it happens, right? Like, it's in a drawer, which is possible that it's already happened. I don't know. I don't get that impression, but at the same time, there's different reports every day. The Leafs have been pretty quiet naturally. We don't know exactly where Marner stands on all this, but the timeline of it, I don't think really matters, whether it's this week, next week, the week after. But you have to have an answer on what you're doing, I think, this week. I think you have to know that, because you have to know what kind of money you're going to have available to you in the future. And there's a chance we're going to know that the deal's done by July 1st based on who they're signing, right? If they're spending money like crazy and the money doesn't add up, you're like, wait a minute, how are you going to fit 10.9 in here? Maybe they're going to show their hand and basically suggest, hey, a deal's coming and things are going to move around. But whether it's before July 1, after July 1, I think that's irrelevant. The Leafs will clearly pay the price for whatever they have to if they believe in the move. But it's probably, you got to have the framework of a deal this week. And I think you probably have to have an answer on what you want to do if you're the Leafs, how Marner's going to react to it if you're Marner, and how the third party is going to react if they're looking to sign him to an extension, which I would assume is probably a part of the conversation as well, and possibly a mandatory part of it for both the player and whichever team he ends up going to.
For sure. What, you switch a little bit to some other guys, Domi, Bertuzzi need to be done at some point. They seem like there's similarities in their play when they've signed their term, their money, that type of thing. You think they're close with any of them? I think those guys want to come back. You hearing any rumors? Who do you prefer?
I think they both would like to come back. That's my understanding. I think Max has been pretty clear on that. But
Yeah.
Max has also played the game. Like Domi's played for a lot of teams. He's had to deal with a lot of turnover in his career. And I don't think the Leafs should go long-term with either guy. I don't think they will go long-term with either guy. I mean, both of them just signed one-year deals a year ago. Like that tells you where the marketplace was throughout the league. And I think both of them had good years this year. Were they substantially better than the year before? I wouldn't say so. Bertuzzi had a pretty good year in Detroit. He had a great first round in Boston. Max was in a different spot because he was in Chicago and they weren't that good. But he got dealt, put up pretty good numbers in the playoffs, and they both had to sit and wait. So if you're the Maple Leafs, why would you expect it to be different this year? I don't think there's going to be 5, 7, 10 teams knocking on their doors offering them long-term contracts. And if that happens, so be it. I think you got to move off that. I don't think you can commit long-term to wing players. I think you know who you've got already in Austin. You're going to spend money on Willie on the wing. You've got to load up on defense. You got to have some money for someone who's going to tandem with Woll, and Woll's new deal is going to kick in after next year. You got to make sure you win those contracts. And it sucks for the players, and the players are UFAs, and they're both good guys, and they both embrace being Leafs, and I thought they really picked up their game down the stretch. And I'd be cool with having both back. But if I'm the Leafs, I'm not signing either guy to more than like a 2 or 3 year deal tops. And if there's term on it, the money's got to come down. Like it just you can't commit to them. If I'm picking one or the other, I probably bring Domi back. I think Domi fit pretty well with Austin. I think Domi's a guy that can move around your lineup a little bit more. There's a PR element to that as well. I think he loved being a Leaf. He speaks well. He handles the media really well. Not that Bertuzzi didn't, but I'd be cool with both coming back. But short term, I think you got to win those contracts if you're the Leafs, and I think they know that, and I think the players probably know that too.
Play armchair GM for me. Is there one potential UFA out there that you'd love to sign in Toronto?
It's probably a defenseman, right? It's the standard names that come up that I can't argue against. A guy like Brett Pesce, a guy like Chris Tanev. I'd be careful on term on both. Tanev's not a young guy. Pesce's 30, and Pesce's a good player. He's not a great player. He's a good player. They're both good players. So I would look at that. I would look at someone that can play on the right side. Ideally, if you can get both, I doubt that's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of suitors throughout the league, but I think they need to solidify their top 4. You got to have faith in who you're putting out on the ice. Top 4 defense. One of those two guys, a guy like, Pesce's a little bit younger. Maybe you give him a little bit more term. Maybe he basically gets the Brody deal. Brody expires. Pesce comes in. Is probably a bit more money, but he's the next Brody guy that you can believe in and trust for 3 or 4 years, and then it might tail off. But I'd be okay with those two. And then again, up the middle of the ice, I think that's something they need to look at. I don't know if they're going to have money for it, but you've got Austin, you've got JT, then you got David Kampf. You can't be going into the playoffs next year with Pontus Holmberg and David Kampf as your 3-4. I don't think it can work. I'd be looking for more speed, more pace. A guy like Chandler Stevenson, I don't know what that price tag is going to look like, but I'd be intrigued by it. I think they got to add some speed up front. I think they got to add some pace, add some size, and solidify that top 4 on the back end. And I would guess that's what they're going to attack.
A lot of holes on this roster for sure. I won't lie. I'm a little scared. July 1st, I think the worst mistakes are made in the NHL. Just there's proofs left and right. And I think you get in a bidding war when it comes to defensemen. It's going to be a scary, scary ordeal, I think, for Leafs Nation. But Hazy, great stuff. Enjoy Game 7 tonight. Enjoy the rest of the week. It should be fun here.
Yeah, you too, boys. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. That's Brian Hayes of TSN doing phenomenal work. Our favorite show, I guess, both of us, Overdrive. The boys there do a great job. But yeah, I think there's just so many questions, Rosie, when it comes to this team. And again, getting to the defensemen, there's some pretty damn good defensemen out there. But you think the Leafs are the only team that want these guys? That's my concern.
Yeah, I know. It makes you think about like what happens in July 1. with the phone calls and the back and forth and everyone's in the war room, and there are guys that lots of people want. That's why they go for big money and get big contracts. And
Yeah.
what is it that the final bid, that the final yes, let's shake hands, comes to, and how can the Leafs become that team where you're the one standing there talking to the guy when that happens without giving them some absurd amount of money where they're looking at his agent going, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Mhm.
yes, do this. And then instantly it's like, whoa, that's a lot of money for that guy. And I remember talking to Jeff Finger. He says, like, there was a bidding war for him, and Ron Wilson coached against him when he shut down Joe Thornton. And he just said, I want him, get him. And they got him and they signed him to a pretty big deal. And he said, the second my agent told me that, I said, holy shit, yeah, let's do it. And then 5 minutes later, Bob McKenzie was on the trade center, the free agent frenzy, saying, here comes a deal. Holy. And he said that second, everyone started ripping me and ripping my contract. And from that day on, I never, ever felt like that cloud and that blackness and that weight wasn't over my head again. And that's what this market does to people. And, you can come in here, you can be screwed before you even step foot in the city. And I hope they don't get into, problems with that by saying, screw it, we need a guy, let's just throw the world at him and have everyone just get on his case right away, which is not ideal way to come into this market. So yeah, there's some potential for that, but I think they got their head screwed on straight. They know the history, they know what they need, they know where they need to go and what their cap sitch is. So it's just going to be interesting, and I'm excited to see how much of a splash they do make early on.
Very exciting times as well in Leafs Nation, because there just seems to be change in the air. And with that in mind, I could tell you that Frank Saravalli went on 590 here in Toronto earlier today, and I just confirmed with Frank that he did say this. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to do everything within their power to try and make something happen. And as he's been saying for weeks, he still thinks there's a strong likelihood that it happens this week if a trade does go down. And I think he still, he was saying that there, under no circumstance do the Leafs have any interest in extending Marner. So Saravalli's been strong on those words for a couple weeks now, and looking forward to what transpires. But man, it's funny. Like, there's both sides of the ledger. A lot of people saying different things. I still think this is going to happen, Rosie.
I still think of the news that came out last week or whatever, where it's like they're actively looking into and assorting together an extension for Mitch Marner. I'm like, why would they do that? Like, why on earth would they do that? They've basically said, yeah, we know what everyone's thinking. We're there too. We got to figure it out what direction we're going to go. And like, Hazy just said, GM, sometimes they're like, if you have time, use it. So why on earth would Trevin go and sign this guy to the contract he's going to demand when you absolutely don't have to? And there's 1,000 other things that could happen over the course of time, and you're going to shoot that all in the foot to sign. Like, when that news came out, I think it was Biz that broke it, but I thought it was the dumbest bloody thing I've ever heard in my life, and not even remotely true, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Collectively, I think as a media conglomerate in this city, we're brain dead, man. You can tell us to go jump off a bridge, we'll jump off a bridge. And that's why this stuff is done. Like, dude, we've seen this playbook so many times in this market where something will surface in the media and people go crazy, and then it'll go back the other way. And that's exactly what has transpired the last 3-4 weeks when it comes to Marner. Like, we've seen every scenario play out in the media. They're extending him, they're trading him, they're going to keep him and make him play his walk year. So we're going to get an answer here in the next 10 days, which I think is interesting. It's exciting. There's a bit of anxiety when it comes to it, pertaining obviously to how big of a piece this truly is. Like, you got to get the situation right. I mean, there's so many moving factors to it, but we've both been consistent in the fact that we think, A, it makes the most sense to at least explore a trade, and B, pull the trigger on said trade. And I never really bought into the extension talks. Like, it would make more sense, and I know it would stink. It would make more sense to walk Marner into his contract year and be like, "Hey, I'll kiss you goodbye at the bus stop and call it a good time with you guys." Like, the cap space to me is allure enough to be like, I'm good if he walks next year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You could see how he would be like, that works for me. Like, it's no scale. Like, why would I want to go somewhere Or say it like you take a trade deadline deal, for example, and it's like, hey, we got lots of guys that could use a Mitch Marner. They're going to give us
Yeah.
some value for next year. I mean, we don't know what's going on with the playoffs, but we could make it, our chances potentially be, get some playoff performers in here, whatever. Why would he say, yeah, let's go to a place that's going to give up assets for me and make Toronto better and their team not as good when I can just walk into a team for free and not have to give up anything? I could see him getting to that point being like, screw you. I'm not
Mhm.
waiving my trade deadline. So I do worry that as you get towards the season, and for some reason, I feel like, July 1 could go off and they could spend a bunch of money and everyone could start speculating, like Hazy says, that, oh, there must be a Marner deal in the background. They have $19 million to play with in free cap room, Marner aside. So they're going to go do things with it. And I just wonder and worry sometimes that it's just stagnant. And he goes, no, I'm not going to any of these teams. So don't even fucking talk to me about it. I might consider maybe these or those for the right thing. And they're like, well, they're not really talking to us. They don't need you. And then it's just stagnant. And then
Yeah.
summer goes on and he has a contract and training camp creeps in. And it's like, what the hell about the Mitch Marner conversation? That's my fear, is that just nothing really happens. And I think that's kind of likely, but I hope that I look at my phone sometime in the next week and go, oh my God,
Yeah.
stuff has hit the fan here. And I'm hoping that happens, but I just know how difficult it is to get that happening and how many things have to go in order and be right. And there's a lot of people that don't have the power to make it all happen. It has to have all these gears in a row for it to happen. So I just know that's difficult. So I have my hesitations, but yeah, I think I've been clear on where I stand with what I
Last
want
time
to
I
happen.
checked, yeah, sorry to interrupt. Like last time I checked, the Leafs haven't come out and said we're not trading this guy or he's not moving.
Exactly.
Nobody has said that. I mean, they really haven't said much on the situation, but I couldn't agree more. I think behind the scenes there's a lot of heavy lifting being done when it comes to Mitch Marner, whether it's an extension, whether it's playing out his final year. And thankfully, we're going to get a resolution to this whole thing because I agree with Hazy. If something's not done by July 3rd or 4th or whatever, he's coming back because nobody's going to have any cap space anymore. A lot of news from over the weekend as well. I don't know if you caught this, but in a recent notebook published by Kevin McGraw of the Toronto Star, he revealed via Mark Giordano's agent, Rich Winter, that Giordano intends to play next season and beyond. Man, he's going to be 41 at the start of the 24-25 campaign. Should the Leafs bring this guy back as like a number 7 guy? I just don't see it. But I'm a bit stunned. Like I thought Giordano was finished in terms of his playing career, but I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know. He must be feeling good. Like physically,
Yeah.
He's not broken down. It's not daunting on him to think about getting, another season of training under his belt and entering another training camp and going through preseason. Will he be the high minute workhorse? Of course not. But like you say, 6-7 guy in and out of the lineup, a few minutes here, there, fill in when the guy's got an injury. Obviously a veteran presence. He's been the captain in the NHL. He's won a Norris Trophy. He's done some things in the league. There's no doubt about it. So I don't know, man. Like what, a league minimum, obviously, again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it for or against it. I kind of like to go away from the trend of what they've been doing as it hasn't been working, but I'm certainly not going to go absolutely not. Giordano, we didn't win with him on the team. That's silly, but
Yeah.
I'm impartial to it. I just think of it more personally and going, man, he must be feeling good physically, like to want to keep doing it at that age. I know where I'm at 38, 39, I'm turning, and thinking like, God, I don't think I could bring myself to train that hard for another summer and to go into war like that and to do a preseason and a training camp. It's hard. And you got to think it's going to be hard on a guy. And he's been playing thousands of fucking times and getting banged up and he's been injured and he just must be feeling really good and have the passion and have the grit and have the jam to go forward. Good for him. And I think it's something they'd look at, but certainly not like right now. They're going to wait till the dust settles and see where they're at and then decide if they want to, jam a Geo into the mix or not.
Yeah, the only way I would do it if it's like a 1-year deal, obviously it's going to be he's 41, but also at league min and Giordano knowing that he's going to be a fringe guy that goes up and down with the Marlies and also the Maple Leafs. I just don't think I could commit to a 41-year-old knowing what I know about the player as a full-time NHLer. I think he would be a 7, maybe a 6, but again, there's a log jam back there, and I think they're going to reinvent the wheel a bit in terms of how they see things on the blue line. I just don't know if I see a clear fit for Marc Giordano. I loved his time in Toronto. I like the fact that he took less to come home and play and wanted to win a cup. It just didn't work out. So that's probably the way I would break it down. I just think it's unlikely, but never say never. I think you can't understate his importance, what he means in that room, all the buzz quotes. But right now, if you're to ask me, I just don't think it makes sense. If he wants to continue playing, he's going to probably go somewhere like San Jose and be a veteran for a young team.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't see him going up and down with the Marlies either. I think he'll be in the press box a lot, but I don't think he's coming back to go ride the bus down to Syracuse. It's just not, that's not what he's doing. It's not what he wants. I think he can be in the lineup and give the minutes where he wants to if he gets on this team, but he's going to have a big presence in the locker room, veteran leadership, being a professional, that type of thing. He's been a captain for a reason, which means you do the right things right. You say, follow me, boys. And there's a lot that takes place off the ice that can rub off on other people. And I'm sure Gio does all that stuff in spades. So I wouldn't suspect him being on the Marlies or anything, but I could see him being in the press box for, 40, 50 games and just popping in here and there, which is realistically like a fill-in guy, league minimum. But again, cross that bridge when you get there, when you handle other more important things.
It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Rosie, the best 2 words in pro sports. Game 7, Cup Final. Who do you have tonight?
I just went heavy, Edmonton Oilers, and sprinkled some on the tie. This thing has been so wild, so Cinderella-ish on both sides. I think that it could easily, be a tighter game. I think that first goal is so bloody important.
Huge.
I thought it wasn't Game 6, and when the Oilers buried it, I was just jacked. But I just think it's going to be hard to stop the Oilers with what they have going on. And I think that they are leaning forward right on their toes. And I think the Panthers are leaning back right on their heels. And there's no way around it. So I'm looking for the Oil. And I think potentially it could go to overtime.
Again, I just don't know if you're Florida, how you come back from this. They just look like a different team. Edmonton's solved that puzzle, if you will. So I'm taking the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup tonight. And Connor McDavid over 1.5. I think he brings this one home. I think he wins the Conn Smythe. He's going to cash a bunch of tickets. I got a future when it comes to Edmonton winning the Cup. I got a future that I took on day 1 before the playoffs started. McDavid winning the Conn Smythe. So we're feeling good. Yeah, we're feeling
You're
good.
Looking good. Mine blew up. All my Florida picks and Bobber picks are just blown right now. And you're on the other side of it there. Good for you, Nikolai.
When it comes to Stanley Cup future tickets, I usually place around 4, like post deadline. So 2 of them were Florida and Edmonton. So we're feeling good. One of my teams is going to hit tonight. I just hope for a good game. I hope the refs stay out of it, man. I just want to see some hockey. I want to see Game 7. I'm probably leaning towards the under. Having said that, I was thrown out of sorts in Game 6 with all the offense, but I would have to play the data and suggest it's going to be low scoring. Teams don't want to make mistakes in a Game 7 where the season, everything is on the line. Your career is on the line. It's nuts,
It's wild, man. Like, it's not very often you get to watch a game where it's like they're just playing 60. They're playing one game.
That's it. Yeah.
The Stanley Cup goes to the winner. It's not like, the whole time it's like they'll win this series if they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals. This is it. And it doesn't happen very often. And it's so goddamn exciting. And the storybook behind it on how they got here is just mind-meltingly rare and exciting. So, again, like I said, I don't get too jacked up to watch hockey games. Sometimes the Leafs get me going a little bit. But this is as big as it gets, man. So appreciate it, everyone. And soak it in because I think it's going to be – I hope it's got to be exciting. This whole goddamn series has been out of control exciting, and I don't think tonight will be any exception.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm pumped. Looking forward to getting on my couch, getting some popcorn going, and just enjoying the game, man. Game 7. It doesn't get better than this. Pardon me?
Solo on the couch, solo mission.
Yeah, I like watching games by myself. I don't really like watching with people, man. It's weird, but even when the Leafs play, I'll watch by myself, analyze by myself. I was invited out to go watch the game tonight. No, thank you. No, thank you.
No, I've got half the town coming to my brother's farm with the shop doors open and a big old.
You're an Oilers fan now, man. We're gonna trade you to Oilers Nation.
Oilers, schmoilers. No, I don't love or hate the Oilers or anything. I grew up more of a Flames guy, but you got to have some appreciation for the Oilers fans, man.
They're huge.
What they've gone through of that decade of darkness, the ups and downs and the heartbreak and the expectations and the first overalls and the floundering of all that and the coaches they've ran through. And my God, and they have stayed so passionate. It's been hilarious and fun watching these games with Oilers fans this year. And honestly, I have nothing but respect for them. They've put up with some shit. They've got a wicked, exciting team. A lot of the team reminds me of the Maple Leafs in many ways. So I can, understand where they're at with some of their issues they've had and some of their strengths and weaknesses. But nonetheless, they have got a big old nation of Oilers fans up there, and I'm happy for them.
Yep, fair enough. And I think you recognize greatness. It would be pretty damn cool to see a Toronto area guy, Connor McDavid, just the best player in the league right now, maybe the best ever one day, hoist Lord Stanley. Zach Hyman, a very likable guy. I know people are dunking on Leafs Nation. Can't hate on the guy. Phenomenal player. Dubas didn't want to re-sign him, didn't want to give him the no trade, goes to Edmonton. 70 tucks this year. Like, my goodness. They're just a very likable team, are the Oilers. So we'll see what happens. Thank you to Brian Hayes for dropping by. Special announcement for tomorrow's show, by the way. We're going to start 30 minutes earlier just to cater to me, quite frankly, because I got a flight to hit Vegas tomorrow. So we're going to be on with you at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Sadly for Rosie, that's 8:30 a.m. Alberta time. We're going to react to Game 7, obviously, give our thoughts, and then also get you set for what's expected to just be a crazy, crazy draft week. So looking forward to that tomorrow, Rosie.
Me too, Nick. We'll see you there, and we'll have some information on what happened with Lord Stanley.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm pumped. I'm jacked. I'm ready to go. Many thanks to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.